happened to her.
They ended up just throwing her out of her vehicle and shooting and killing a mother of three in cold blood right in the middle of a busy street.
Police located a woman face down and suffering from multiple gunshot wounds to the head and face area. A 12-gauge deer slug was located in the vehicle.
And this is something that you don't typically see in Omaha.
They checked into if someone possibly followed her home. Was there possibly a side relationship taking place?
It really put a lot of fear in people, especially in northwest Omaha where the crime occurred.
Video surveillance, fingerprint evidence, and purchase records. The victims were all tied to one person.
He was a product of the system who was just thrown in a box. When his sentence ended, they let him out to wreak havoc. When police start putting together all the evidence, they realize that this is a killing spree that's happening, and Andrea Krueger was the fourth victim. From the first time you saw his mugshot, that to many people was the face of a killer.
Hi, I'm Nancy Odell. Today's Crime Exposé takes us to Omaha, Nebraska. A wife and mother driving home was ambushed and murdered in her car. Police didn't know if the killer was a stranger or someone she knew, but what they uncovered tied the murder to the most notorious killing spree in Omaha history. Last call in Omaha. A hard-working bartender on her way home stopped at a drive-thru restaurant for fast food.
Just after 2 a.m., police received a 911 call regarding shots fired and a vehicle speeding away from an intersection in southwest Omaha.
I'm gonna need a supervisor. I'm gonna need a squad to this location. I have a female face down on the street.
Control 13, supporting contemplative breathing.
No.
Police located a woman face down with no ID and suffering from multiple gunshot wounds to the head and face area.
Her husband realizes that his wife has not come home from work, and around 6 a.m. is when he wakes up and turns the news on to see that a homicide has taken place in the neighborhood involving a female, and police are looking for help identifying this female.
So how did you wind up identifying her?
Michael was concerned for his wife's safety and ended up going to the scene since it was so close to his house. Upon arriving at the scene, Michael was able to identify the victim as his wife, Andrea Krueger. Andrea was the victim of a gunshot wound.
So initially the call came into the newsroom, but I was one of the first ones on scene the next morning. And this is something that you don't typically see in Omaha. Andrea Krueger, mother of three, shot dead, her vehicle gone, while Krueger still left dead in that road.
Were police able to piece together how Andrea was killed?
Andrea Krueger had stopped at McDonald's on her way home after work, just miles from her house, and they followed her down 168th Street North, where they were able to get in front of her and stop her, trying to rob her, but they ended up just throwing her out of her vehicle and shooting and killing a mother of three in cold blood right in the middle of a busy street.
Michael asked the police if they were able to locate Andrea's car, and they stated it was not on scene. The police then put out a BOLO, or be on the lookout, for Andrea's car.
Andrea Krueger's husband was in shock when he realized his children were now without a mother. There was a clock ticking to find the perpetrators who killed Andrea. Omaha police needed Michael to help retrace his wife's final moments.
Michael was taken in for questioning, and he revealed that Andrea had went into work at a local lounge called Deja Vu, where she was a bartender that night. He said the last time he had heard from her was at 12:30 while she was at work. Michael had stayed home that night to care for his three children as one of them was sick.
Detectives had little to go on in determining who murdered the woman. Was it a stranger or someone she knew?
They knew that Andrea was at work that night. They checked into if someone possibly followed her home. Was there possibly a side relationship taking place? Was this random? At this point, police are trying to investigate all leads.
Initially, when police are on scene, they have no idea who does this, so they always start with the people that are closest to Andrea and go from there.
It was determined that Michael and Andrea often got in arguments over financial issues, and the police were concerned that possibly this could have been a domestic-related event. When evidence did not tie Michael to the scene, police eventually then looked for any associations with ex-boyfriends or possible leads that could have been tied to Andrea.
Police did have to consider the fact that it could have been somebody who Andrea had known at the bar, or, as she was working there. Police did interview people there and found that to be uncredible.
Police scoured the city trying to find the victim's stolen car. It could hold evidence of who killed Andrea Krueger. There were few leads of where to begin looking, but then police got a break. When was it that police were able to make progress in identifying who was the murderer?
12 hours later, a tip from the neighbors in the area were able to identify the fact that the vehicle had been abandoned in the alley at approximately 3 a.m. Video revealed a male in the area trying to abandon the car. There was smoke and fire damage on the inside of the car. Along with the fire evidence from the vehicle, a 12-gauge deer slug was located in the vehicle.
Whoever had murdered Andrea tried to destroy evidence that could lead back to them. Police searched for anything that could be a clue as to who killed her, but they had their hands full. There were other victims within days of her murder. What else was going on in Omaha when Andrea was murdered?
During the time of Andrea's murder, Omaha police were dealing with a double homicide involving two victims that appeared to have been robbed at gunpoint and murdered in their vehicle, while a second murder victim was located under suspicious circumstances laying in a driveway after a night out with friends.
So how did the bullet, the slug that was found in Andrea's car, connect her murder to the others in Omaha at the time?
Evidence from multiple homicide scenes showed that the same brand and same gauge type shotgun shell was used. The type that was used was known as a deer slug, which is a large slug type projectile from a 12-gauge shotgun.
When police start putting together all the evidence, they realize that this is a killing spree that's happening, and Andrea Krueger was the fourth victim. Two men murdered in South Omaha, another man murdered in North Omaha, and now Andrea Krueger in Northwest Omaha.
Police now believed there was a serial killer on the loose in Omaha. A woman on her way home had been brutally shot and killed in the middle of a street in a suburban area of Omaha. Police were stymied who had murdered the mother of three and why. But the killer had left a ballistic fingerprint in the victim's car. It wasn't much, but it was all police had to go on.
Police are looking at the similarities between these other three homicides and Andrea Krueger, and they look at the kind of ammunition that was used from the deer slug of the shotgun. And at this point, they're able to track where this ammunition came from and then proceed to find who purchased this ammunition.
Investigators were able to track down the source of the ammo to a local gun store. Upon closer review of video surveillance footage, the suspect was determined to be the cousin of Nico Jenkins. That suspect's palm print was also identified at the crime scene of the double homicide that had occurred earlier that month.
Nico Jenkins was a known gang member with a long rap sheet. Strong-armed robbery and shootings were his stock in trade. It appeared that the killings were possibly tied to Jenkins' crew, and they were all his relatives.
As investigators continue to look further into the evidence, they realize the Jenkins family continues to come up, and specifically Nico Jenkins is the one who continually is brought to the forefront as a possible suspect.
Through Crime Stoppers tips video surveillance, fingerprint evidence, and purchase records. The victims were all tied to one person, and that person was Nico Jenkins.
With the cousin of Nico Jenkins in custody, police squeezed her for everything she knew about the murders. And the more she talked, the more police believed the killings were connected.
An interview revealed that the cousin and Erica went to a bar that night in an attempt to find victims for the robbery. They were able to convince the two victims to meet them outside the bar, and Nico was awaiting them and robbed them at gunpoint, committing murder.
Police now believed that Nico Jenkins was involved in Andrea Krueger's death. They brought him in for questioning. If Jenkins was worried about a homicide charge, he didn't show it. Homicide detectives identified Nico Jenkins as the ringleader of an Omaha crew that had murdered Andrea Krueger and 3 others. They had ballistic evidence found at all the crime scenes that was tied to Jenkins.
From the first time you saw Nico Jenkins' mugshot, it frightened everybody. That, to many people, was the face of a killer.
Once Jenkins was released after a decade in prison, police say it was only a matter of time before someone got killed.
Nico Jenkins grew up in a real crime-ridden area of Omaha, and he spent pretty much his teenage years and most of his 20s in prison, sometimes locked in confinement while in prison before being just let out and then going on this killing spree less than a month later.
Now in custody, Jenkins teased detectives that he was willing to give up his role in the killing spree. But during his interrogation, he toyed with detectives and played endless mind games.
With my history and my reputation, and this first-time testimony of ever aiding assist law enforcement, and everything that I'm saying is accurate.
Through interviews with others in his crew, police pieced together what happened the night that Andrea Krueger was murdered. She just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and it cost Andrea her life.
Andrea leaves work, goes to a restaurant afterwards. It's in the middle of the night, and Nico Jenkins and his associates are looking for a potential victim to steal a vehicle, and they just happen to come across Andrea being alone, and they made their target on her.
Eventually, Jenkins gave it all up and told police of his involvement in the crimes, and he laid out what had occurred the night Andrea Krueger was murdered. So when you interviewed Nico, the alleged ringleader, what did you learn about Andrea's death?
Nico Jenkins admitted to his part in a 10-day homicide spree in the Omaha and surrounding areas. Nico stated on the night of Andrea's murder that he and his sister and his uncle were all out and about looking for somebody to rob.
Bartenders, and they walked out to their cars right after that, because the specific point was to get her to an isolated place.
That's when they observed Andrea leaving her work from the Deja Vu Lounge. They followed Andrea as she went to go get drive-thru and then stopped her in an attempt to rob her. Nico approached the car and fired several shots into the vehicle. Andrea attempted to speed away, only making it to the intersection, where Nico then approached the car, pulled Andrea's body out of the vehicle, and left her to die in the middle of the intersection.
I know she was shot multiple times. I don't know if it was 5 or if it was, he said 3 or 4 times, right?
So
it's not under 3. It's not under 3. It's not under 3.
Did Jenkins have a reason why they murdered Andrea versus just stealing and robbing the car?
Nico did come say that he was behind the murders, but he blamed it on the god Apophis, who he said made him do them. It's hard to really describe Nico Jenkins sometimes without actually watching some of the antics that he does, just trying to manipulate people into, thinking that he's crazy when he's actually not.
In spite of his perverse antics, police knew Jenkins was a killer, and they had enough to build a case against him.
When this unfortunately took place to Andrea, they were able to look at evidence and connect the different murders to each other. And once they found out that Andrea was murdered by Nico Jenkins, they were able to determine that he was involved in these other murders as well.
And what were your experiences with Nico during his incarceration as well as the court dates?
I spoke to Nico for many hours on the phone. while he was in prison. We would speak face to face sometimes during court. I spoke to many of his family members as well. A lot of them said that, he was a product of the system who was just thrown away, thrown in a box. And when his sentence ended, instead of getting him the mental health that he needed, they just let him out. They let him out to wreak havoc on whoever and whatever in Omaha without any sort of supervision or any sort of, mental health help.
Nico Jenkins was charged with capital murder in the 4 deaths. Rather than face trial, he pled guilty. And how did the case wind up playing out?
Nico Jenkins ended up standing trial for all 4 homicides and were convicted on all 4 counts. Nico Jenkins was then sentenced by a judicial panel to the death sentence here in the state of Nebraska.
Therefore, this panel finds that the death penalty is appropriate, should be, and is hereby given for each of the 4 murders by the defendant.
It had a profound effect on me, having talked to him many times, but also, it never left me the tragedy of the loss of Andrea Krueger, how it impacted her family. I talked to her husband multiple times, hearing all the stories of how great of a person she was, how she would help anybody, loved her family, and it was just heartbreaking to see, so many people that I had known for years, so broken because of what happened.
Was it hard for Omaha to move on after the Nico Jenkins killing spree?
Nico Jenkins is currently in custody awaiting his death sentence. And I think that it brought some closure and security to the minds of those in the Omaha area, knowing that the murderous spree of Nico Jenkins was over.
Unfortunately, taking Nico Jenkins off the streets came too late for Andrea Krueger and her family.
People were fearful of Nico Jenkins for good reason, and he is sitting on death row right now.
Police say Nico Jenkins, the ticking time bomb felon, never should have been released from prison, but no one cared until his killing spree took the lives of 4 people. He's now on death row, still trying to overturn his conviction and blame the system for his crimes. The murder of Andrea Krueger proves once again that releasing violent felons unsupervised only results in more deaths. And now it's time for today's Safety Spotlight. While nothing can ensure your safety 100% of the time, it is best to be situationally aware and prepared to act quickly in the event of danger. Trust your instincts. If you sense trouble, get away as soon as possible. And while in public, keep a lookout for individuals acting or behaving suspiciously. If someone makes you uncomfortable, distance yourself as much as possible and move to safety. Avoid shortcuts and stick to well-lit streets and populated areas. Keep valuables out of sight. Don't flash large amounts of money or jewelry. And if you fear you're being followed, call 911 and drive to a safe location like a police station or fire department. I'm Nancy Odell. For everyone here at Crime Exposé, please join us next time and stay safe.